Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today. Before we get started with anything involving the Callisto Protocol, I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of you. Thank you so much for all your love, kindness, support in the response to my video announcing a change in how we produce videos here on MrMattyPlays, where we're going to really focus more on quality than quantity. So thank you, and to those of you who even went out of your way to sign up to my Patreon to support things there, thank you big time. It does make a difference. With that, ladies and gentlemen, let's not delay any further. Let's get the new initiative started, shall we? And what better game to begin it with than the Callisto Protocol? This was easily one of my most anticipated games of 2022, simply because of the connections to Dead Space. To me, Dead Space is the king of survival horror. I won't argue you if you say Resident Evil is, but I absolutely adore what Dead Space stands for, with its environmental storytelling, strong focus on audio, its love of stomping, and of course, its focus on dismemberment. All those combine into a unique flavor that really defines Dead Space, so much so that I dedicated one of my largest projects on the channel to the entire series. It didn't do that well, but I digress. I love the series enough where I'm just happy that video exists to celebrate the life and death of Dead Space. The Callisto Protocol comes from some of the same minds that Dead Space did, such as Glenn Schofield, who literally led the charge on Dead Space 1 through 3. So imagine my excitement when he announces this brand new IP and you could smell the Dead Space all over the Callisto Protocol. Following the release of the game now, you take a look at the reviews and they're very much all over the place. Before I get into my personal opinion, I just want to make you aware of the review code situation for this game, because it's a rare one nowadays, but it's one you absolutely as a consumer should be aware of. Beware the rushed review process. Really, it seems like press, to my knowledge, got this game only a couple of days ago, and content creators such as myself got it within the last 48 hours. This is not a long game by any stretch, but there has simply not been enough time for us to digest and marinate on our experience. And that's something you should be aware of, my review included, by the way. This is not taking a shot at any review that's out there, but this went under a rushed reviewed process. And so you, as the user who has more time to digest your experience, may have, as always, a different opinion. But this one, I think, especially needs calling out. I wanted to make sure you are aware of that. And without further ado, let's dive into some of my thoughts on the Callisto Protocol, which, quite frankly, I do seem to mirror a lot of what's going on out there. I'm not sure what happened here other than really a lack of focus on design and one of the worst dodge systems to enter video game history. So let's get started with the story. You're on board a cargo ship. That bad boy crashes down into the dead moon known as Callisto. It's there you start learning that there are multiple planets and sectors and there's travel between them. And I love that feeling, man. You know, you could right away smell the Dead Space on it, even to the opening cutscene with the camera panning away from a monitor. I mean, it's clear that they're making a lot of callbacks in this game to Dead Space, and rightfully so. I mean, the guy who directed the whole experience is directing this game, so there are nods here or there. But as your ship crashes, you're then brought to a prison facility, and it's there that upon waking up in this prison facility, it's all gone to crap. People are kinda undead, and you're not sure why you were spared by the warden. And so there is an intriguing mystery at the heart of this game. Why is everyone killing one another? Why was your main character spared? And the demons that he has to face as he goes through the trials and tribulations of the Callisto Protocol, I thought were pretty interesting. But it's still one of those things where gameplay ultimately is king, no matter how intriguing your core mystery is. And when those key gameplay components are extremely frustrating, it can make you want to bang your head against the wall. Let me start off by praising the graphics for Callisto Protocol. Look, I will be the first to sit here and say I don't care about graphics. I am certainly an art style guy, and I think Dead Space particularly managed to blend the two together where it looks really good, but there are particular art style choices such as propaganda on the wall and how it's delivered to the player that I really, really liked. And given that in Dead Space 1 you were roaming the Ishimura, you had different sectors there that showed similarities in the environment, which would make sense. You're on the same ship. However, there was enough differentiation. And this prison facility, while it looks fantastic and it is grotesquely detailed, it is a little bit samey as you start to crawl through it in the opening hours. And I did find that a little bit disappointing here, because I do think with Dead Space and how it was limited back then, they got creative with it, and I didn't see that same oomph here with the Callisto Protocol. But make no mistake, this game looks really good. Perhaps to a fault that they focused on fidelity, because from what I've seen online, a lot of the performance for this game is spotty, particularly on PC. Now, I played this on Series X, where I know it's the second best console to play it on. Apparently, PlayStation 5 has the stronger, more consistent frame rate. But over on Series X, I gotta say that I personally didn't have any major performance dips. So if you are an Xbox owner, and only an Xbox owner, and you do end up wanting this game, I don't think you're up Schitt's Creek without a paddle, pretty much. I think you're gonna be fine if my experience was anything to go off of. But let's not dilly-dally anymore. I really want to talk about the gameplay for Callisto Protocol, because this was, bar none, where I was most excited. Because I thought of the dismemberment of Dead Space and how picking apart your enemies instead of just shooting for the head was such a unique concept. It's a small twist on what already exists, but given that Isaac was an engineer and a lot of the weapons he was using were just engineering tools that were redefined, I thought it was so incredibly creative. And imagine my disappointment when the start of this game gives you a hammer, a baton, a pistol. It lost all of its creativity on the weapon design. And those opening hours to me were woefully slow. Imagine if in the first hour of Dead Space, all Isaac could do was punch the necromorphs. And that's kind of what you have here. And it immediately puts a spotlight on, easily in my opinion, the game's greatest flaw. And that is the dodge system. If you don't know anything about Callisto Protocol's dodge system, let me break it down for you, because it is actually fascinating that they didn't decide to map any of this to a button, but instead it's all the left analog stick. So let's say you're coming up to me and you're like, Matt, I'm gonna swing at you. I'm gonna get a good punch in for all those stupid Fallout fanboy videos you made. I'm like, okay, here we go. You hold the analog stick to the left. And as long as I'm holding to the left and you're coming in and hitting me, I'll dodge. Now, I can't hold the left analog stick to the left again. I have to switch to the right if I want to dodge a follow-up attack. And so you'd imagine on paper, it gives it its own rhythm. But this was clearly an idea, and I'll get into how I think this game just has design problems all over the place. It was an idea that was implemented, and they just didn't seem to have enough time to really fine-tune it into something that works properly, because I understand what they were going for, but as you die over and over, and even when I got used to it, because I already saw when I put out my tweet, a lot of people going, get good, bro. Shut up. You get used to it. It still is not a good dodge system at all, because the game's design fails itself. As you progress deeper in the game and enemy after enemy after enemy attacks you, and given the camera's close proximity to your main character, yeah, they're going to sneak up on you and hit you because you can't see them and you don't know which way to dodge. And given that it's not mapped to a button, you can't just automatically dip out of the way. You have to hold the left analog stick and hope you're going in the right direction, and hope that enemy A in front of you isn't attacking you at the same time that enemy B behind you is. It is woefully designed in that regard. And I don't know why it was never mapped to a button. If they stayed with their more one-on-one and maybe at times one-on-two format, I think this game would have been fine with its current dodge system. But as they ramp up the encounters when you get deeper into the game, it becomes a bit of a headache. And you start to see the detail in the death animations, which some of these things, man, I won't even spoil them for you, especially because YouTube will completely nuke my channel, but they are insane. They are awesome. The grotesque gore lover in me adores the level of detail they put into them. And that's unfortunate that they didn't recognize that when you die a lot in the Callisto Protocol, and I don't mind a challenge, by the way, but the problem here isn't challenge, it's controls. But when you die a lot and you start to see that same grotesque animation over and over, it does lose some of its luster, because you don't just die and it's over. You die and then it's like a 5 to 10 second scene of you just getting pulled apart. But I do like that it's there. It's just, again, that the elements before it that lead into it are frustrating, so you can't enjoy death like you could in Dead Space, where sometimes you got really messed up, or in Tomb Raider, you got really messed up. You go, damn, what happened here? Whoa. You don't really get that with the Callisto Protocol, and it all goes back to the dodge system, which I don't think would be the end of the world if they didn't design the encounters in a particular way that really overwhelmed you. And honestly, I didn't expect combat to feel as fluid as Dead Space, and I don't think it's fair to match the two up in that regard, simply because if you look at the budget Dead Space got, Dead Space 2 had one of the biggest budgets in video game history. It's probably not going to, by default, feel as good as Dead Space going in. But again, the mechanical design here, I don't think it felt that great. The primary focus, and for some reason they did it this way, are melee attacks, especially in the opening hours, just hammering away your right trigger, and they go for this cinematic beatdown, but then they add the gun into the mix, and when you get the revolver, they talk about a quick shot mechanic where you can quickly pull out your gun and shoot a weak spot and then keep the combos going. And I don't know why, in a genre fully built around shooting and targeting weak spots and being conservative with your resources, that they went for the thing with infinite amount of swings and using it as openings for shooting weak spots, because that is the best way to get around. But when you look at the lack of creativity in the weapons, I just feel like this game was almost being tested up until the final moment, and they didn't have any time to reverse course and say, hey, yeah, we played this mechanic out, I don't think that's good, let's go this direction instead, let's try this instead. Because unfortunately in video game development, as I'm sure everyone knows, your first idea isn't always your best, and there are ideas that are on paper that don't always pan out. And this game is a perfect example of that, where they think like, hey, Dead Space was built off of zero HUD. What if we kind of just made this dodge system a very natural part of the movement? It sounds amazing on paper, and it falls apart in execution. And that's unfortunate, because this game also borrows, I think, some of the technical issues from Dead Space that I don't see many talking about. For example, remember in Dead Space 3 when you were roaming around and you'd go into these little tunnels here, and they'd have these spinny doors that were just loading screens that were invisible for the next area you were going into, and they were everywhere across the game. This game's version of that is one that maybe you've seen in the past, but they use every loading screen trick in the book to make sure that you don't have to have your gameplay experience broken up, which I appreciate, but it's pretty obvious. These are things like QuickTime events to pull open the door, and when you succeed on the QuickTime event, the game kind of just locks up and you see your main character holding the door a little bit, and then when the level loads, he's like, okay, now I'm gonna pull it open. You see the game deliberately waiting you out until it's ready to progress you. Moments like shimmying through a tight area so everything can load in. It just very much wears its technical issues on its sleeve, and that's fine if the game is at a lower budget, but it is charging you $70, and these are things that I noticed from Dead Space 3, techniques that were borrowed and used in an egregious format here. And again, it's not the end of the world with the occasional loading screen trick. Every game in the book uses it. I just think this one in particular reminded me a lot of Dead Space 3, and in not the greatest way. Interestingly, some of my favorite moments in this game are when the action slowed down. I really liked in the Callisto Protocol this moment here, where I feel like the gameplay really speaks for itself, where it's more of a scary experience as these bots are sweeping through the prison facility and they're taking out all of the infected. It's a creepy moment where you just feel incredibly vulnerable, and you know this is an enemy you can't challenge. Now, this game does have fun elements to it. For example, if you're mashing away on your melee attacks and an enemy is right up against an environmental hazard, you can body them up into it. You can also use what's called the grip, and that gives you telekinesis. So you start to see the pieces of the puzzle come together. Again, elements of Dead Space, but it just doesn't have the elegance of execution that that game had. What it did execute perfectly, though, is the lack of HUD. That is borrowed straight from Dead Space here, and it is a welcome addition to the game. So one thing I always loved about Dead Space was Isaac would have his health and his kinesis meter all attached to his back. You never had to look at a menu, look at a piece of UI in the corner of the screen. It was all built off of immersion, which is interesting because it managed to create immersion in a third-person gameplay space, which is very tough to do. Oftentimes, immersive experiences are associated with first person because you see it from your own point of view. You know, you don't see, when you're walking around in real life, an overhead, that'd be awesome, by the way, but you don't see an overhead going past your shoulder. You don't see that, right? You see from your eyes, and your hands are the main interactors. So they managed to create immersion in a third-person space, and they've done so here with the Callisto Protocol. I really like how they did that, but What's weird is some of, especially the opening tutorials, are very heavy on QTEs and buttons popping up on screen. So it again feels like the design is really fighting with itself in those early moments. And I don't know what they were going for, because especially when some enemies grab you, it gives you those QTE pop-ups. And I just think at times it's a failure of design, which is unfortunate because the menu system works the same way. It just pops up right in front of you. You can just manage it all there. It's how you access your lore. The health bars on the back of your neck. There's a little bar above it for your kinesis. I mean, beautiful execution on that. And now you look at Dead Space Remake coming up, and what Callisto Protocol has unfortunately set itself up as, and I had a feeling they'd probably try to kick this one out the door before Dead Space Remake, where the superior option may have been present. We don't know yet until it comes out, but they may have just handed them the ball and just said like, hey, you could walk into the end zone now for a touchdown, because what Callisto Protocol has set itself up as is a good appetizer ahead of Dead Space, instead of really being the true competitor. And that's disheartening, because I want more survival horror competitors, and by God do I want more that have Dead Space inspiration. While everyone tries to be Resident Evil, which I love and respect, I wanted to see more like Dead Space, where you are picking apart your opponents. And what better mind than the person who envisioned all of Dead Space? And it just goes to show that budget goes a very long way in this industry, as I imagined you'd expect. But now this definitely is a game that looks like a, hey, if you're in the mood for something a little Dead Space before your Dead Space, pick this up on a sale, because this has that stink of like, it's going half off by January. With all the games that are coming out and how it needs to stay competitive, I see this game dropping in price pretty quickly. And it also has the stench of, well, once you're dead with Dead Space, you want a little bit more. Yeah, Callisto isn't that great, but it is a good option for you. What I will say in conclusion is this. Callisto Protocol is disappointing. I don't think it ever would have reached the heights of Dead Space, but it's disappointing because I think it betrays a lot of the core concepts of Dead Space and loses itself in that mess. But what I will say is it's not the woefully terrible game that I think the industry has made it out to be. That is from a console experience. When I looked at the PC experience and I saw it, bad. That is truly bad. But what I experienced on console was something that was just heartbreaking. And sometimes heartbreaking is worse than egregiously bad. And I totally understand that, because as someone who does a annualized worst games of the year list, you know your man does sometimes include disappointing games on that list, because to me, I see 1,000,001 buggy games a year. Of course, and if you dig into Steam's storefront, of course you're going to find even more buggy games. They're all over the place. But sometimes the ones that hurt the most are the ones you were really rooting for, and they let you down in almost every area. And that certainly is the Callisto Protocol. As a diehard Dead Space fan and someone who's dedicated a lot of time to that series, doing a full trilogy replay last year, and I am excited now, even though I had my concerns a bit on some of the design changes they're making, I am excited now for Dead Space Remake, but now the pressure shifts to EA Motive. Will they deliver the Dead Space experience that we are looking for? And how much will be changed moving from the original Dead Space, which was not fully voiced with the main character Isaac, to now having full voice acting with, mind you, the original voice talent. I do like that, but I do have some concerns with the way they have approached that and what it will do to change the overall, what I thought was pure survival horror experience. So there is more pressure there now, but ultimately you're here to learn about Callisto Protocol. And what I will say is this is a wait for a sale. No matter how much you enjoy it, it comes with a caveat, and you end up just thinking to yourself, why did this have to happen? And you can't have that type of experience and pay full price. But I must again insist, this doesn't mean when you buy the game, when you play it, you will have a bad time. There have been many more worse games this year. I'm looking at you, Saints Row. I'm looking at you, Babylon's Fall. I'm looking at you, Crossfire X. There have been many more terrible experiences this year. Callisto Protocol is not one of those god-awful experiences, but it is one that is disappointing, and it's going to come with some growing pains, some gripes, and I do hope that they end up building off of this. I hope this isn't the end of the road for Striking Distance Studios. As a company with their first game, you definitely want to come out on a strong foot and be encouraging. Certainly this wasn't the case, but I do hope they stick with it and reuse some of the stuff they have here to refine it and make the true Dead Space successor that we've been looking for. Time will tell on that one. That's everything I had to say about the Callisto Protocol. Ladies and gentlemen, I am looking forward to seeing your thoughts on this one. Have you had a chance to play it? Please do fire away. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, especially the new ones, and all the members who continue to support the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.